Do you believe that justice always prevails? Or sometimes, does justice itself need to evolve? Imagine yourself sitting in a packed courtroom, the tension so thick you can practically hear your own heartbeat. The cold fluorescent lights buzz overhead, casting a harsh glow on every corner of the room. And yet, all eyes are fixed on one man, Elon Musk. No, this isn't a press conference about rockets or electric cars. Today, he sits there as the defendant in a case of the century. Charges of manipulating financial markets, tax evasion, and deep interference in the global economy. These heavy accusations aren't just aimed at him personally. They feel like a direct challenge to the dreams and vision he represents. But what keeps you glued to the screen isn't the litany of charges. It's Elon Musk's demeanor. He sits upright, his back straight, his sharp eyes calm and calculating, as if he's already anticipated every move in this legal chess game. There's no army of high-powered lawyers whispering strategies into his ear, no trace of panic or fear. Instead, he exudes an unsettling confidence, as though he holds the key to the entire puzzle. Then, when prosecutor Michael Grant, the infamous corporate hunter, unveils what he claims is irrefutable evidence against Musk, something unexpected happens. Elon simply smiles, a smile that's equal parts wisdom and biting irony. You might think this is the moment that seals his fate. Wrong, because just as the prosecutor, brimming with self-assurance, declares victory, Elon rises to his feet and says, "Your Honor, why are we trying to regulate the digital world with laws written for the age of paper?" That single question doesn't just silence the courtroom. It ignites an unprecedented debate about the future of justice. This isn't just a legal battle. It's where power, truth, and the evolution of systems collide head-on. Every piece of evidence presented, every accusation made, becomes part of a larger picture. Can an outdated legal system comprehend and embrace dreams that transcend its time, or will it crush them under the yellowed pages of obsolete laws? And then, just when you think the drama can't escalate further, a shocking twist unfolds. The evidence against Elon turns out to be fabricated. But even more chilling is the identity of the mastermind behind the conspiracy, a mysterious figure, a former employee fired for financial fraud who now seeks revenge. Yet, the question lingers, is this truly just a personal vendetta, or does it mask a greater scheme, one designed to hold back humanity's progress? The story doesn't end there. When the final verdict is delivered, you'll find yourself shivering. Not because it's the conclusion, but because it's only the beginning. Elon Musk walks out of the courtroom not as a victor, but as a reformer, someone who has challenged the entire system and forced it to confront itself. But does he have the strength to transform a centuries-old system? Or will the old powers fight back, protecting their dominance at any cost? If you want to know what happens next, hit that subscribe button today to follow Black Footprints. We're not just telling this story. We're taking you on a journey full of suspense, where every detail matters and every moment leaves you breathless. Join us as we explore the shadows of justice, power, and human evolution. Are you ready? On a stifling autumn morning, the courtroom was packed to the brim, as if the entire world was holding its breath, waiting for the outcome of the trial of the century. Harsh fluorescent lights illuminated every corner of the room, but all eyes were fixed on one man seated in the defendant's chair, Elon Musk. It wasn't because he was the billionaire visionary known for his era-defying dreams, nor solely because he had revolutionized how humanity viewed technology, electric vehicles, and space travel. Today, he sat there as the defendant in a highly controversial case: manipulation of financial markets, tax evasion, and deep interference in the global economy. These accusations weren't just aimed at him personally. They felt like a direct challenge to the vision and innovation he represented. Elon Musk sat upright, his sharp yet calm gaze sweeping across the room. He showed no signs of worry or fear. On the contrary, his demeanor exuded an unsettling confidence, as though he had already foreseen every move on this legal chessboard. There was no army of high-powered lawyers whispering strategies into his ear, no visible panic or dread shielding him from the weighty charges. Instead, He wore an air of unshakable composure, dressed in a meticulously tailored suit, exuding an ease that suggested he knew exactly what was coming, and he was ready for it. Facing him was Judge Richard Bennett, a stern man with silver hair and piercing eyes. Judge Bennett wasn't someone easily swayed by fame or wealth. With over 3 decades of handling major corporate cases, he was renowned for his ability to peel back even the most sophisticated legal maneuvers. Today, he sat with his chin resting on his hand, observing Elon Musk with a mix of suspicion and curiosity. Part of him couldn't help but wonder, would this billionaire crumble under pressure, or did he possess some secret that could turn the tables? Across the room stood Prosecutor Michael Grant, tall and self-assured. Grant was a familiar name in legal circles, nicknamed the Corporate Hunter. From lawsuits against hedge funds, tech giants, to pharmaceutical companies, he had never lost a case. Today, he entered the courtroom with a smirk, confident that Elon Musk would become the next big fish in his trophy cabinet of victories. Before him lay a thick stack of documents, internal emails, financial reports, recorded phone calls, all meticulously prepared to prove that Musk wasn't just a brilliant entrepreneur, but also someone who manipulated the law for personal gain. But there was one element that no one in the courtroom knew about, except Elon Musk. Just hours before the trial, he received a cryptic text message from an unknown number. The message was brief, but enough to raise his guard. Asterisk, they've forged the evidence. Be careful. Asterisk, there was no clear indication of who sent it or why, but it was enough to plant a question in Elon's mind. Was this merely a legal battle, or did it conceal a larger conspiracy? As public opinion buzzed and media speculation ran rampant, as reporters typed furiously and financial analysts whispered predictions, Elon Musk remained seated, silent and resolute. He wasn't just fighting to defend himself. He was representing a new generation of entrepreneurs, those who dared to dream big, break old rules, and create the future. But the question still hung heavy in the air. Could an outdated legal system understand and embrace these era-defying dreams, or would it crush them beneath the yellowed pages of obsolete laws? The trial began, and none of them realized that this wasn't just another legal battle. This was where justice, power, and the evolution of humanity would collide fiercely. And in Elon Musk's mind, he was prepared for every possible scenario. The atmosphere in the courtroom was so tense that it felt as though every breath had been collectively held. Reporters filled the spectator seats, their fingers flying across laptop keyboards or hurriedly jotting notes with frantic scribbles. Industry leaders, those who had once admired or criticized Elon Musk, now sat silently, their eyes glued to the central figure of the trial. The public, whether present in person or watching on TV screens, awaited a historic outcome. Everyone understood this was no ordinary lawsuit. It wasn't just deciding the fate of one man, but challenging how society viewed law and progress. Prosecutor Michael Grant rose from his seat, exuding confidence as if victory were already his before the trial had even begun. He strode toward the podium with an air of authority, adjusted his navy blue tie, and turned to face Elon Musk with piercing eyes. "Your Honor, members of a jury," Grant began in a clear, commanding voice. "Today, we are not here to discuss business or innovation. We are here to talk about responsibility." He paused for a few seconds, allowing each word to sink into the minds of everyone in the room. "We have a man," he said, pointing directly at Elon, "who believes that because he creates, because he builds, because he innovates, the law does not apply to him." Grant continued presenting the accusations. Internal documents, complex financial reports, and even recorded phone calls that he claimed would prove Elon had manipulated markets, evaded taxes, and disrupted economic stability. Every statement was punctuated by forceful gestures, as if he were hammering the charges into the invisible walls of the courtroom. Many in the audience shuddered under the weight of these allegations. But what surprised them most was Elon Musk's complete calmness. There he sat, back straight, focused yet utterly unshaken, as if he knew exactly what was coming next. Just as Grant was about to conclude his opening remarks, Elon unexpectedly spoke up. His voice rang out softly, but carried enough authority to draw everyone's attention. "Your Honor," Elon said, his gaze directed at Judge Richard Bennett. "Before we proceed, I'd like to ask a small question. What do you think justice means in the age of technology?" The courtroom fell into absolute silence. Pens stopped writing, cameras ceased flashing, and even Grant froze mid-motion, unable to believe that the defendant had posed a philosophical question during such a serious trial. Judge Bennett furrowed his brow, his expression revealing genuine surprise. He placed both hands on the table, lightly tapping his fingers while deep in thought. Elon's question wasn't merely a challenge. It was like an arrow piercing through the rigid shell of the legal system, striking at the heart of the matter. "Justice," Judge Bennett finally responded in a slow, deliberate tone, "is ensuring that every individual complies with the law, regardless of their status or wealth." He paused, then added cryptically, "But I will admit, the law sometimes needs to be reconsidered to keep pace with the times." Elon smiled faintly, a smile that was hard to read but added to the intrigue in the room. It wasn't the smirk of arrogance or defeat. Instead, it carried a profound self-assurance, as if he knew this battle extended far beyond his own fate. This was the first sign that Elon wasn't merely defending himself. He was challenging the entire system, a system he believed was outdated and incapable of keeping up with the breakneck speed of technological advancement and innovation. For those present, this moment marked the beginning of a true intellectual duel. No one could predict what would happen next, but one thing was certain. Elon Musk was no ordinary defendant, and this trial promised to change the way the world viewed the law. The courtroom was thick with tension as prosecutor Michael Grant stepped forward, confident that he held the final piece of evidence needed to bring down Elon Musk. In his hand, he held a thick document, raising it high as if it were a trophy of victory. "Your Honor, members of the jury," Grant's voice rang out, powerful and commanding. "This evidence will prove not only the manipulation of financial markets, but also the systematic violation of the law by the defendant." Slowly, he opened the document, pulled out a clearly marked page, and placed it on the table in front of everyone. "Here, Your Honor, is Elon Musk's signature on internal Tesla document, confirming financial strategies that we allege violated the law." Elon remained silent, his calm gaze fixed on the document. Without a hint of worry or hesitation, he stood up, walked over to the table, and picked up the document. The entire courtroom held its breath, waiting for his reaction. Elon's fingers flipped through the pages lightly, his sharp eyes scanning each line. Then suddenly he stopped. A faint smile appeared on his face. Not one of mockery or sarcasm, but something more enigmatic, blending wisdom with subtle irony. He let out a soft chuckle, quiet yet powerful enough to ripple through the room. All eyes turned to him as Judge Richard Bennett furrowed his brow, leaning forward slightly, puzzled. "Mr. Whitaker," Elon said, his tone calm but brimming with confidence, "do you really intend to use this as evidence against me?" He placed the document back on the table, tapping his finger gently on the signature. "If so, can you explain to the court why this signature isn't mine?" The courtroom fell into complete silence. Reporters stopped writing, analysts ceased whispering, and even Grant froze, his eyes wide with astonishment. Judge Bennett ordered the document to be submitted for closer examination, and after a few minutes of comparing it to official records, he was forced to concede. The signature on the document did not match Elon Musk's legal one. But Elon didn't stop there. He pressed on, his voice warm yet razor-sharp. "This forged signature is just the tip of the iceberg," he declared, his piercing gaze locking onto Grant as if reading his mind. "I know who altered this document. It was a former Tesla employee, someone fired for fraudulent financial conduct. And now, he's seeking revenge by providing fabricated evidence to the prosecution." Elon's words exploded like a bomb in the courtroom. Grant felt a chill run down his spine, his face turning pale. Frantically, he flipped through his stack of documents, searching for any clue to salvage the situation. But the more he searched, the more everything seemed to crumble before his eyes. The mysterious whistleblower Elon had mentioned, the man dismissed for his own wrongdoing, now haunted Grant's thoughts. Who was truly behind this lawsuit? Was it merely a personal vendetta, or was there something bigger at play? Judge Bennett, now fully drawn into the intellectual duel, tapped his gavel lightly and asked Elon to provide further evidence to support his claims. But Elon simply smiled, his eyes gleaming as though he held all the cards. "Your Honor," he said, his tone respectful yet challenging, "we will soon uncover the truth. But what matters more is this. Why is our legal system so easily exploited? If a forged document can slip into this trial, how can we trust any other piece of evidence?" Elon's question plunged the courtroom into chaos. Reporters began buzzing with speculation, cameras flashing repeatedly in his direction. Industry leaders whispered among themselves, their expressions revealing concern. As for Grant, he now looked like a man lost at sea, unsure of what to do next. This was no longer a simple legal battle. It was a profound test of truth, power, and the evolution of the system itself. And in that moment, Elon Musk had taken full control. Elon Musk rose from his seat, his sharp gaze sweeping across every face in the courtroom. He was no longer the accused. Now, he had transformed into a legal strategist with the ability to turn every accusation into an opportunity to expose the system's flaws. "Your Honor," he began, his voice deep and powerful, "we have a much bigger issue here. The question isn't whether I've violated the law, but why the legal system is so easily exploited." His words rang out like a wake-up call, silencing the room to the point where a pin drop could be heard. Prosecutor Michael Grant tried to maintain his composure, but his tightly clenched hands gripping the documents on the table betrayed his tension. "This is no time for vague philosophies, Mr. Musk," Grant retorted, his voice trembling slightly. "We're here to determine whether you've complied with the law." But Elon merely smiled, a subtle, unsettling smile that made his opponent uneasy. "No, Mr. Grant," Elon replied, his tone confident and razor-sharp. "This is precisely the moment to question the very nature of the law. If we use outdated regulations to govern modern technology, aren't we creating a system ripe for exploitation?" Then, delivering what felt like a fatal blow, Elon stepped toward the center of the courtroom, where a large screen flickered to life. He pulled a tablet from his suit pocket, tapped the screen lightly, and immediately, a complex 3D simulation appeared before everyone. The visualization displayed two overlapping streams of legal regulations, each coded in different colors. A red line, representing old tax laws based on paper transactions, and a blue line, symbolizing new laws tailored for digital transactions. Between them lay a chaotic intersection, clearly illustrating the conflict between the two systems. "Ladies and gentlemen," Elon said, his tone reminiscent of a professor delivering the most important lecture of a student's life, "look at this. Clause 247 of the Financial Market Compliance Act requires companies to disclose trading strategies if they exceed a certain threshold, but this clause was written during an era when trades were still conducted on paper. And here," he pointed to the blue line, "is the new law passed last year, which specifically exempts tech companies from that obligation because technology has far surpassed traditional concepts." He paused, allowing the audience to absorb the information, then continued. "So which should I follow? If I adhere to the old law, I violate the new one. And if I follow the new law, I break the old one. This isn't my fault. It's the fault of a system that can't keep up with the pace of innovation." The courtroom fell completely silent. Reporters stopped typing, analysts ceased whispering, and even Judge Richard Bennett sat up straight, his eyes reflecting deep contemplation. What Elon was presenting wasn't just a defense. It was a scathing indictment of an outdated legal system. Grant attempted to counter, but his voice had lost its initial confidence. "It's just a technicality, Mr. Musk," he said weakly. "The law always allows for flexible interpretation." But Elon cut him off immediately, his piercing gaze as sharp as a razor. "A technicality, Mr. Grant? Or a fundamental flaw? When you build a system on a false assumption, every subsequent calculation becomes meaningless. That's basic physics, and it's also basic legal principle. He took another step toward the podium, his voice lowering but carrying immense weight. We're trying to regulate the internet with laws written before the internet existed. We're attempting to manage the digital economy with financial policies designed for paper transactions. We're punishing progress because we don't know how to categorize it. I didn't break the law broke itself while trying to catch up with the modern world. Elon's words hung in the air like a time bomb. No one in the courtroom could refute them because he had proven that the problem lay at the root, not with him personally, but with the system everyone relied on. Prosecutor Grant stood there, pale-faced and speechless. Judge Bennett lightly tapped his gavel, but his eyes said it all. This trial was no longer a mere legal battle. It had become a debate about the future of justice. And in that moment, Elon Musk didn't just gain the upper hand. He forced the entire world to reconsider. Prosecutor Michael Grant, now resembling a boxer backed into a corner, decided to unleash everything he had in a desperate attempt to regain control. Rising from his seat, he tried to mask his anxiety with an appearance of calm professionalism. "Your Honor," Grant said, his voice clear, but tinged with an undercurrent of tension he couldn't fully conceal, "we cannot allow populist defenses to derail justice." He stepped toward the podium, clutching a thick stack of documents, and proceeded to present additional evidence that he believed would seal the case. Grant began by presenting a series of internal emails, purportedly documenting Elon's plans to manipulate financial markets. These emails, he explained, his tone brimming with confidence, clearly show that Mr. Musk exploited regulatory arbitrage, leveraging legal loopholes to gain an unfair advantage in financial transactions. He emphasized every word, his gaze sweeping across the jury in hopes of regaining their trust. But what captured the courtroom's full attention was the audio recording he was about to play. "And this," Grant declared, raising his voice, "is irrefutable evidence." He pressed a button on a small audio device placed on the table. The room fell silent as Elon's familiar voice echoed. "If we push this through before they realize, we can." Suddenly, the recording cut off in a static, but it was enough to stir murmurs throughout the chamber. Reporters scrambled to take notes while analysts whispered among themselves about the possibility that Elon had admitted wrongdoing. Grant glanced around the room with a smug expression, feeling as though he had reclaimed control. However, Elon remained seated, calm and composed, as if watching an entertaining play unfold. When the recording ended, he slowly rose to his feet, his sharp eyes locking onto Grant. "Mr. Grant," Elon said, his voice deep and challenging, "do you really think a spliced recording like that can represent the entire story?" The courtroom fell silent again. Grant frowned, unsure of what Elon meant. "Let me clarify something for you," Elon continued, stepping closer to the podium. "That recording lacks all context. The issue isn't what I said, it's why I said it, and under what circumstances." Elon paused for a moment, his gaze sweeping over every face in the room, then went on, "I'm willing to request that the court conduct a digital forensic analysis of all data related to this case. If you dig deeper, you'll find that many of the emails you've presented have been edited or tampered with. And as for the recording you just played, it's merely a fragment of a much longer conversation where I discussed ways to improve the system, not manipulate it." A chill ran down Grant's spine. Frantically, he flipped through his stack of documents, searching for any clue to counter Elon's claims. But the more he searched, the more he realized he was falling into a trap Elon had meticulously set. All the evidence he once thought was ironclad now became glaring question marks. Judge Bennett, now visibly skeptical, demanded that the prosecutor provide further details about the origin and authenticity of the documents. "Mr. Grant," the judge said sternly, "if your allegations are based on incomplete or altered data, how reliable can they be?" Grant swallowed hard, struggling to maintain composure. "Your Honor, these pieces of evidence were collected through legal procedures and verified by experts," he replied, though his voice lacked its initial confidence. Elon smiled faintly, his eyes gleaming as though he were playing a chess game whose outcome he already knew. "We need transparency, Mr. Grant," he said, his tone respectful yet challenging. "The law shouldn't rest on fragmented pieces or vague assumptions. It must be grounded in comprehensive truth and impartiality." Elon's words hung in the air like an unexpected twist, plunging the courtroom into silence. Grant, who had once been absolutely confident of victory, now felt the ground beneath him crumbling. He realized he wasn't just facing a defendant. He was up against a strategic genius who had turned the entire trial into a lesson on the evolution of law. In that moment, everyone understood that the dynamics of the battle had shifted completely. Elon Musk rose from his seat, his demeanor calm yet exuding power. He took slow, deliberate steps toward the podium, his gaze sweeping across every face in the courtroom. The silence was absolute, so profound that the faint drop of a pin would have echoed through the chamber. Everyone present knew this was no ordinary moment. This was the juncture where Elon would deliver his closing statement, a conclusion capable of altering the entire course of events. "Your Honor," he began, his voice deep and unwavering, "allow me to share a small lesson from physics, a fundamental principle we all understand. If you build a system based on a flawed assumption, every subsequent calculation becomes meaningless." He paused for a few seconds, letting each word sink into the minds of those listening. If your foundation is faulty, no matter how many layers of complexity or new rules you add, the final outcome will still be skewed. He turned to look at Prosecutor Michael Grant, his eyes sharp as a razor. "This is exactly what we're doing with the law. We're trying to regulate the digital world using rules written for the age of paper. We're punishing progress because we don't know how to categorize it." Then, with the precision of a final blow, Elon lowered his voice, creating an intimate atmosphere. "I'm not saying this just for theory or philosophy. I'm saying it because I've witnessed the real consequences of an outdated system." He paused, drawing a deep breath, as if preparing to reveal one of the most painful memories of his life. "Your Honor, perhaps many of you don't know this, but I once had a loved one, a close cousin, who lost their family's entire fortune because of an outdated tax regulation. They didn't intentionally break the law. They even hired the best accountants available. But the problem wasn't with them. It was with the law itself. That regulation was written during a time when the digital industry didn't exist, and when applied to our modern context, it became a disaster." Elon's voice trembled slightly, revealing a rare display of emotion he seldom showed in public. They didn't have the resources to fight the system. They didn't have enough information to understand why this happened. And ultimately, they suffered. Not because they did anything wrong, but because the law couldn't keep up with the world we live in. The courtroom fell completely silent. Reporters stopped typing, analysts ceased whispering, and even Judge Nathaniel Hayes sat up straight, his eyes reflecting deep contemplation. Elon's words were more than a defense. They were a powerful indictment of the very system everyone relied upon. "That's why," he continued, his voice regaining its composure and weight, "the law must evolve. It cannot remain static while the world changes. If we want to protect justice, we must ensure that justice doesn't fall behind. Otherwise, we won't just be punishing individuals. We'll be punishing progress itself." Elon took another step toward the podium, his eyes gleaming as though he were peering through the veil of the present to glimpse the future. "I'm not here to oppose the law. I'm here to protect it by pushing it forward. Because if we continue to use old laws to control tomorrow, who will dare to dream? Who will dare to innovate?" Elon's words hung in the air like a ticking time bomb. Prosecutor Grant, who had been absolutely confident of victory, now felt the ground beneath him crumbling. Judge Hayes lightly tapped his gavel, but his eyes said it all. This trial was no longer a simple legal battle. It had become a debate about the future of justice. And in that moment, everyone understood that the dynamics had shifted entirely. Judge Richard Bennett sat silently in his chair, his gaze pensive as if he were weighing not only the fate of one man, but also the future of the legal system he had dedicated his life to upholding. The courtroom was so silent that the faint drop of a pin would have echoed through the chamber. All eyes were fixed on him, the stern, fair judge renowned for his ability to unravel every legal maneuver, waiting for his final verdict. After what felt like an eternity, he took a deep breath, lifted his gavel, and tapped it gently. The sound reverberated throughout the room, marking a historic moment. The court declares. Bennett's voice rang out, deep and resonant with the weight of decision, that there is insufficient legal basis to proceed with this case. The courtroom erupted into chaos. Reporters scrambled to take notes. Cameras flashed incessantly toward Elon Musk, who remained seated, calm and composed as if he had anticipated the outcome all along. Analysts whispered among themselves. Some looked astonished, while others nodded as if they had just witnessed the inevitable. Prosecutor Michael Grant, who had been absolutely confident of victory, now stood frozen, his face pale. He couldn't utter a word, only staring at the judge in disbelief at what had just transpired. But for Elon, this was no mere victory. It was a powerful message to the world. The legal system needed to evolve. As soon as the judge left the courtroom, Elon rose from his seat, adjusted his suit jacket, and walked out. A crowd swarmed around him, peppering him with questions, attempting to snap photos or capture footage. But Elon didn't stop. He moved past them all, his gaze focused as though he were contemplating something far greater than the present moment. That night, upon returning to his private apartment in Beverly Hills, Elon received a mysterious message. There was no sender's name, only a brief line, "We need you." Attached was an encrypted document containing information about a global legal reform project. The group behind this initiative called themselves the Future Council, an organization comprising top industry leaders, scholars, and politicians from around the world. They acknowledged that today's trial not only exposed flaws in the legal system, but also demonstrated that Elon Musk was the only person capable of leading this reform. Elon sat before his computer screen, his eyes gleaming in the dim light. He read through the document carefully, line by line. This project wasn't just about revising outdated regulations. It aimed to establish an entirely new legal framework, a flexible system capable of adapting to the breakneck pace of technological advancement. Ideas began to form in his mind. He knew this would be a greater challenge than any project he had undertaken before, from SpaceX to Tesla. But he also understood that, if successful, it wouldn't just change his life, it would transform the world. A few days later, Elon accepted the invitation. He didn't make it public, but during a rare interview, when asked about his feelings after the trial, he simply smiled and said, "I didn't escape justice. I forced justice to evolve." With that statement, a new chapter in Elon Musk's life officially began. No longer just an entrepreneur or innovator, he was now a reformer, a man who would challenge and reshape how the world operates. And in his mind, he knew that the real battle had only just begun. The trial did not end at the courtroom doors. It rippled outward like a tsunami, shattering geographical and disciplinary boundaries. Moments after Elon Musk stepped out of the courthouse, headlines around the world blared in unison. Asterisk, Elon Musk has forced justice to evolve. Asterisk, reporters, commentators, and even ordinary citizens buzzed with discussions about the true meaning of the verdict. For many, this was not the victory of a single individual. It was a wake-up call for the entire legal system, a stark reminder that if the law does not keep pace with innovation, it risks becoming a tool of suppression rather than progress. In the days that followed, the case became the central topic of debates everywhere, from the halls of the U.S. Congress to international forums. Lawmakers began reevaluating how they regulate modern industries, especially as technology raced far beyond human imagination. Outdated regulations, once considered the bedrock of the legal system, were now scrutinized under a skeptical lens. Some hailed Elon as a hero of the times, a man brave enough to confront the system and expose its fatal flaws. Others criticized him, labeling his actions as exploiting legal loopholes and warning that this precedent could create a world where the wealthiest and smartest individuals evade accountability altogether. But for Elon, this was never a story about escaping justice. He understood better than anyone that the real battle was far from over. A few days after the trial, during a rare interview, he sat before the camera, his eyes thoughtful yet resolute. "I didn't leave the courtroom to run away from justice," he said, his tone calm but powerful. "I walked out to remind all of us that the system needs reform. Justice shouldn't be a wall blocking progress. It must be a bridge leading us to the future." His words quickly became the rallying cry of a global movement. Millions of people, from young entrepreneurs to social activists, began demanding change. They shared personal stories about how outdated regulations had ruined their lives. Families losing everything because they couldn't navigate complex tax laws, tech startups being shut down for violating rules no longer relevant. Elon hadn't just sparked a debate. He had opened the floodgates for millions to demand a better system. Behind the spotlight and accolades, however, Elon knew he was still standing on an unrelenting battlefield. In the weeks that followed, he received countless invitations to global summits, discussions on legal reform, and even threats from forces determined to preserve the status quo. Cryptic messages from shadowy power groups appeared on his phone, some offering collaboration, others issuing warnings. "You think you've won," one message read, "but the battle has only just begun." On the final night, before he left the United States to attend a global conference on the future of law, Elon sat in his study, the dim light casting shadows across his contemplative face. Before him lay a detailed plan, notes outlining the challenges ahead, convincing governments to adopt blockchain and governance, building an entirely new legal framework powered by artificial intelligence. He knew the road ahead would be fraught with obstacles, but he also knew there was no choice but to keep moving forward. Finally, as he stepped out of his office and gazed up at the star-filled night sky, a faint smile crossed his face. "They think I'm finished," he whispered to himself, "but they don't understand. The real battle is just beginning." This open-ended conclusion raises a profound question in the minds of readers. Can Elon Musk truly transform the entire legal system? Or will entrenched powers find ways to drag him down? No one can predict what will happen next, but one thing is certain. Elon Musk's battle is not just the story of one man. It is a symbol of a world struggling to reconcile its past with its future. And in this journey, every step he takes carries hope, challenge, and risks too great to foresee.